Good morning, club members. We digest world-class journalism and talk it through in plain English. Here are 5 stories worth your time. Police forces across England and Wales have stopped using generative AI to prepare court evidence. Senior police leaders ordered the pause after several commercial chatbots produced convincing, fabricated claims. The concern here is not simply that a computer makes a clumsy spelling mistake. Modern AI systems generate text by predicting patterns, not by checking the truth. They can produce fluent, authoritative paragraphs that are completely made up from nothing. In a criminal investigation, that kind of fiction can ruin an innocent person's life. English courts rely on a strict legal rule known as provenance. Investigators must always prove where every single piece of information came from. If a police officer writes a report, we know who is accountable for it. But with artificial intelligence, creating a clear audit trail is almost impossible. Even when you ask the chatbot to explain its answer, it simply invents another story. Defense lawyers are already asking awkward questions about what prompts officers typed into their screens. These fears are no longer theoretical because errors have already appeared in real police work. In the West Midlands, officers prepared a ban for visiting football supporters last year. Their AI assistant cited serious crowd disorder during an earlier match between the teams. The only trouble was that the match had never actually taken place. Another case in Derbyshire is even more troubling for the justice system. A detective was suspended after allegedly using AI to draft sensitive charging documents. As a result, authorities are now reviewing several past rape convictions. The obvious answer is to make officers check every line the computer writes. But that requirement destroys the very reason police wanted AI in the first place. Forces adopted this technology to save valuable time and cut through mountain ranges of paperwork. If every single claim needs independent human checking, the time savings vanish into thin air. Yet without thorough human checks, faulty evidence can slip into court unnoticed. When someone's freedom is at stake, convenience cannot replace accuracy and personal responsibility. For now, British police must step back and rethink how they handle digital tools. The hard choice is whether faster paperwork is worth the risk of a wrongful conviction. For our second topic today, we turn from courtrooms to the business of war. The United States military has run into a very expensive math problem. Recent operations across the Middle East have cost nearly $68 billion this year alone. Much of that fortune was fired directly into the sky. Replacing the used missiles and air defense interceptors will cost over $25 billion. These high-tech interceptors are designed to shoot down incoming rockets and attack drones. They work extremely well, but they take years to build. Now, American arsenals are running dangerously low on these vital munitions. That shortage creates a major headache for military planners in Washington. Defense factories cannot simply double their production lines overnight. Replacing those high-end missiles will take years of sustained funding and factory work. Meanwhile, planners are watching the Western Pacific with growing concern. China has spent years expanding its own fleet of ships and long-range missiles. If a conflict breaks out over Taiwan, the current American stockpile may not be enough. Every month Congress delays new funding, that missile gap grows wider. For decades, the Pentagon focused on buying small numbers of exquisite, perfect weapons. These systems are packed with secret technology and cost millions of dollars each. That approach worked well in short conflicts against smaller adversaries. However, modern warfare burns through ammunition at an incredible rate. Firing a $2 million interceptor to destroy a cheap drone is not sustainable. Recent fighting in Ukraine proved that raw quantity matters as much as quality. To fix this vulnerability, Defence experts are calling for an urgent change in strategy. They want a 2-year sprint to build what they call precise mass systems. These are lower-cost, autonomous drones and sensors built using ordinary commercial parts. Instead of waiting years for expensive missiles, factories could build thousands of smart drones quickly. Commercial assembly lines can produce these autonomous systems at speed and scale. Because they are cheap, commanders can afford to lose them in heavy combat. This swarm of cheap machines could help protect Taiwan and deter Chinese aggression. Yet pulling off this rapid shift will not be easy for a cautious bureaucracy. Military leaders would need to relax rigid procurement rules and accept more technical risk. Politicians must also stop delaying annual budgets and approve emergency funding. Whether Washington can break its old habits in the next 2 years remains an open question. Without that change, the military could find itself with plenty of money but empty shelves. For our third story, we turn from defence budgets to the global trade in raw materials. Indonesia has launched a powerful new state company to manage its commodity exports. The new entity is called Danantara Sumberdaya Indonesia, or DSI for short. The government created DSI to monitor shipments of coal, palm oil, and nickel alloy. These 3 commodities bring in about $70 billion every year. That accounts for nearly a quarter of all Indonesian export income. Indonesia is the largest exporter of thermal coal and palm oil in the world. When Jakarta changes the rules of trade, international markets pay very close attention. So why is the Indonesian government stepping in right now? President Prabowo Subianto wants to stop exporters from hiding their profits overseas. For years, some mining firms reported lower prices on paper to avoid local taxes. They also parked their foreign cash in offshore bank accounts instead of sending it home. That hurt public finances and pushed the national currency, the rupiah, to record lows. By overseeing every transaction, the state hopes to collect more tax and protect the rupiah. In its first 2 months, DSI tracked $14 billion worth of exports. The agency is building a transaction platform to verify cargo routes, product quality, and payments. For now, DSI operates only as an official supervisor and intermediary. The company is run by an experienced former mining executive from major global firms. Government ministers insist that private miners can still export directly to their regular buyers. They also promise that existing long-term supply contracts will remain completely safe. Yet mining groups and global buyers remain anxious about this growing state presence. The initial 3-month transition period ends next week, but many practical rules remain vague. Business leaders warn that extra paperwork and inspections could raise costs and delay shipments. The biggest uncertainty is what happens after 2026. The current monitoring model is only guaranteed until the end of that year. After a government review, DSI could become the sole sales agent for all strategic commodities. If that happens, foreign companies will lose direct contact with private mines. Every buyer would have to purchase Indonesian raw materials straight through the state. For global energy and manufacturing supply chains, that shift represents a massive gamble. A system created to stop tax evasion might soon rewrite how vital resources are traded. For our fourth story, we move from global trade to the toy box on your floor. Lego has just reported another astonishing run of business success. Their sales jumped by more than a fifth in the first half of this year. Net profit grew by a third to over 8 billion Danish kroner. That is more than $1 billion in just 6 months. Almost everywhere in the world, people are buying more plastic bricks. Their growth was lifted by sets based on Formula One, football, and Pokemon. They have also attracted more adult builders and young girls in recent years, yet children still spend more time on glowing screens than ever before. To stay relevant, the Danish toy maker is now quietly reinventing its famous brick. Lego has tripled the number of software engineers on its payroll. They are rolling out what they call smart bricks. These new pieces contain tiny electronic chips that react to how you play. They produce sounds and special interactive effects as you build models. You can already find them in sets like Star Wars and Pokemon. Over time, the company plans to add even more digital features to regular boxes. Lego is also pouring cash into new factories and greener recycled materials. They are building a massive new plant in the United States. They recently opened another large facility in Vietnam. All of this might look like an easy, endless victory lap. However, the company remembers its own history very well. Back in 2017, sales suddenly stalled because the business became too complex. Years earlier, in 2004, Lego almost went completely bankrupt. The chief executive says investing heavily now is their best protection against future decline. If a business stops investing at the right speed, it eventually runs out of steam. At the same time, Lego is trying not to overstretch itself again. They claim they are hiring with focus rather than grabbing everything in sight. The real test will be whether digital bricks actually feel like Lego. Parents love the toys precisely because they keep children away from phone screens. If the smart toys feel too complex or distracting, that magic could fade. For now, Lego is betting billions that physical building and software can happily share the rug. For our final story today, we move from toy bricks to an economic puzzle in China. Chinese leaders urgently want families to have more children to fix a shrinking population. Yet inside Chinese offices, having a baby has never looked more dangerous for a career. Young women in China are now better educated than at any point in history. 51% of all university students across the country are female. Decades ago, women worked at rates that led the world. In 1990, nearly 80% of working-age women were employed. Today, that share has dropped below 70%. Men now earn roughly a third more than women on average. At the top of business and politics, women have almost disappeared entirely. For 25 years, the top ruling body in China included at least one woman. Since 2022, there has not been a single woman on that council. Part of this divide comes from old-fashioned workplace bias. Some job adverts still openly ask for male applicants only. Other firms demand that female candidates be already married with older children. Important business deals are also frequently settled over long, heavy drinking dinners. These late banquets often leave women feeling excluded or uncomfortable. However, the biggest hurdle is what economists call the motherhood penalty. Chinese law actually provides about half a year of paid maternity leave. That sounds like generous support. The catch is, who pays the bill? The state covers only a small fraction of that time. Employers must pay the rest of the salary directly from company funds. When an employee takes half a year off, the company must fund the absence. Because of this burden, managers often refuse to hire women under 35. Female workers report that bosses expect to be warned before anyone tries for a baby. The state is now encouraging two-child families to reverse its falling birth rate. This campaign makes bosses even more afraid of long, paid absences from female staff. At the same time, Chinese offices demand exhausting, round-the-clock hours. That schedule leaves very little room for parenting. Faced with this clash, many ambitious women simply delay motherhood or avoid it completely. The very policy meant to boost births is pushing educated women further away from family life. Until the state pays for parental leave, Chinese mothers will continue to bear the cost. That brings us to the end of today's stories. Thank you for sharing your breakfast with me, and I will see you tomorrow morning.